I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for July the 12th, 2023. As is always the case in these videos, let the express or mine alone, and when making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look towards your local weather office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. So across the tropics today, we have three systems we're going to talk about, but we're going to start off with Tropical Storm Calvin in the eastern Pacific. Has since yesterday formed into a tropical storm. And right now, the current look on satellite is pretty good. You can see this classic curved band look surrounding an eye, perhaps trying to develop there in the visible satellite loop. This is a common look in systems that we see developing into hurricanes, and we've even seen a lot of cases of satellite looks like this that eventually go into rapid intensification. Now, to see if Calvin actually goes into rapid intensification, but under this look, it seems like almost a certainty that either tonight or tomorrow the system will become a hurricane. Now, here's a water vapor loop. You can see the upper level cirrus starting to diverge away from the storm. That's the good divergence aloft that I talked about yesterday that the system would have. And you can see this on analysis. This is showing the yellow upper level divergence, and you can see great divergence aloft over this system, and that indicates a very low shear environment in general. Here's a sounding, all right, that's microwave. Here's a sounding from the GFS. That's what I wanted. You can see the mean shear is about 5 knots, and you can also see in the 200 millibar flow from the GFS ensembles that general divergence aloft, allowing that low shear environment. Now here's the microwave pass I was trying to show you earlier. Now what we see is again this big band on the northwestern side, but what we also see is the center here and what looks to be perhaps an inner core forming alongside that center. Now if I look at visible, you can start to see maybe a little divot in the cloud tops, perhaps indicating that this system is trying to complete that eye wall. We'll have to see what the next microwave pass gets, but again, I'd give a good bet that tonight or tomorrow this system would likely be a hurricane. Now, in terms of intensity, this is the intensity guidance, and you can see generally the guidance calls for intensification as you would expect with the conditions in place, getting to about high-end Category 1 or Category 2 on the model suite before it starts to decrease in intensity. And the reason it decreases in intensity, notice the time about 60 hours, is sea surface temperatures. This is the sea surface temperature map overlaid, or well, on top of that is the overlaid the National Hurricane Center forecast. You can see this is a 60-hour forecast. It is now at that point crossing the 26-degree isotherm. So that's why we're expecting all that weakening. Now, after this, after the first peak, we are expecting the system to come towards Hawaii. This is a GFS ensemble of main 500 millibar flow, and you can see this little trough-like feature in the isobar flow is our storm here. This is Calvin, and what we've got is the same general picture as yesterday, a ridge up north following it west, so this will keep it moving towards Hawaii. Now, the good news is sea surface temperatures are fairly low here again, and they really don't increase to favor tropical cyclones until you get west of the state. Now, here's a European as well. You could see, now this doesn't go as far out on as a GFS does, but you can see the general idea, the ridge up north, Calvin down south, moving towards Hawaii. Now, here's the GFS parent model, and you can see this is about 132 hours out, so this is Tuesday, July 18th, next Tuesday, and we've got our tropical storm here. This would still likely be a tropical depression or storm, it looks like on the model here, but it is weakening, and as we get towards Hawaii on the model, you'll see it opens up into a trough. And we just have this general trough moving through the region. And this could bring some adverse impacts. You can see there is still some moisture, and moisture does increase eventually on the model as it comes right through Hawaii. So we could see some increased rainfall, especially if it comes in a little further south, which we have seen a little bit in the ensemble means, at least a little bit of a trend southwards. So that does depend, of course, rainfall does depend on track. But after Hawaii, it is possible that the system does perhaps reform or re-intensify as it gets into warmer sea surface temperatures. But you can already see we're past 7 days here. And at this point, it's just worthless to start talking about that as we have so much of the storm right now to deal with, and of course that comes in due time. Now here's the JFS ensemble track guidance. You can see the general same idea that we had yesterday is still there today. General intensification until it reaches the cooler sea surface temperatures, and then as it heads towards Hawaii, gradual weakening, and then as it gets towards Hawaii, there is some a splitting there on the exact track, but in general, if it tracks further north, you may get away, fairly rainfall free. If it comes further south, you might get a little more rainfall in Hawaii. Now here's the National Hurricane Center forecast. You can see expecting the system to become a hurricane tomorrow morning, it looks like, and continuing that general intensification, reaching a peak intensity on this forecast at about 90 miles per hour. Going off the general consensus of guidance, that seems like a fair forecast to me. And as it reaches the 26-degree isotherm right about here at hour 60, it starts to weaken gradually as it heads towards Hawaii. And you can see it entering the Central Pacific, which starts at 140 degrees west of longitude by late weekend. Now, for those in Hawaii, again, my recommendation is stay tuned to the Central Pacific Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service there. They're going to have the latest information on there. I believe that the Central Pacific Hurricane Center are already mentioning that this system is expected to enter their area of responsibility. Now we're going to move to the Western Pacific, where we have Invest 95W near the Philippines here, and this is a general broad monsoonal mess that could develop into a tropical cyclone as it moves into the South China Sea. Now, as this is a monsoonal system, it's going to be very broad, so it may take a while for this system to really form into an actual tropical cyclone. We saw this with Invest 93E just earlier this week. That was a monsoonal type system, and it took so long to develop that that one actually did not develop. Now, this system is not going to be dealing with the same issues 93E had. It's going to have plenty of warm sea surface temperatures to contend with. But again, monsoonal systems, they can take a while to develop. Now here's a JFS model, and you can see as we go through on the run, we'll see that JFS actually developed two systems out of this. We have one in the South China Sea and one east of Taiwan. I'd say caution on this system on the eastern side. This seems a bit suspect on the JFS's end. The JFS does like in these sort of monsoonal type systems to develop random systems that really would never form. So I wouldn't really put too much trust in the GFS on this. I'd more so put trust into the South China Sea system on this. The European, I'd say, has a better handle on this, developing only the South China Sea system. Right there you can see. And as the system does eventually form in the South China Sea, it would track towards China, where we could see some adverse impacts of strong winds and heavy rainfall as the system comes in. Now here's a GFS ensemble tracks. Again, this is the system that is trying to develop on the eastern side of the entire monsoon gyre. But in general, here's a western system in South China Sea. You can see that generally coming towards China. And this would, again, include heavy rainfall and strong winds. Now, in terms of strength, we have to first see how this system forms. We have to see how long this system takes to actually develop. As I said, this is a monsoonal system. It's very broad in general. So if it takes forever, it could just be, a tropical storm, maybe mid-grade as it comes into China. But you can see some ensemble members even saying that this system could get maybe a little bit stronger, maybe towards a typhoon. Now remember, the pressures on there, they are pretty low on some of those tracks. They're 980s to 970s. But as this is a broader system, you would expect a lower pressure with lower winds than you would expect at that normal pressure, because it is bigger than your average tropical cyclone. Now we're going to finally talk about the Atlantic for the last system. We've got an area of low pressure here in the central Atlantic, which could become a brief subtropical or tropical cyclone. Now the system is not expected to really come towards any land areas. There is a potential it might get close to the Azores in the longer range, but we're seeing guidance say against this even in a long range, having it come towards the Azores and then go away. Now I'll show you the GFS ensemble mean here. You can see the general pattern with the broad low pressure area here in the central Atlantic with ridging up north and ridging to the east. This is going to block it from coming towards the Azores. And you can see that take shape here. We have the ridges start to connect here, and this blocks the system from coming just northeast, and it just stalls here in this region. This also may just help it form into a subtropical system as it's stalling really over favorable seasons temperatures. Now, as we go in time here, as we go towards 5 days, we start to see the system overall weaken, and also the ridge that was east of it now moving towards the south. So now we've got a flow in general from this ridge pushing it towards the Azores, but this general ridge envelope is now generally north to south, and over time this is going to start pushing the system south, and you'll see that happen on the GFS. Eventually the ridge just stays in place here and it starts to push the system southwest away from the Azores. So that seems to be a general idea. The European as well has this idea. Of course, there's still time for things to change. This is only 7 days out, so things can change. But in general, right now, we're not expecting any big impacts from the system. Now, here's the National Hurricane Center tropical weather outlook, and you can see they're giving the system about a 50% chance of developing as it remains in the central Atlantic over the next several days. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching.